when Vance was hosting Charlie Kirk's podcast, he said, quote, "It's a statistical fact that most of the lunatics in American politics today are proud members of the far left." You're an expert in extremism. Does it seem like a statistical fact?
I mean, as someone who has made his career covering many people who that could be classified as lunatics, I would say the right has more than its fair share.
Yeah, I did think it was interesting when he went on to say, "Sure, we have some crazies on our side of the aisle. Of course we do." I was going to be like, someone should ask him a follow-up on that one. See if he can say anyway.
Well, I think someone pointed out that, amid this Republican complaint about, calling Donald Trump Nazis, et cetera, that J.D. Vance obviously once, I believe, called Trump a Nazi or Hitler before making his MAGA turn.
Sure did. And RFK Jr., I think, too. So we're learning more about the shooter. We learned some from authorities on Tuesday. I think there was some thought on the left early on that the killer might be part of the Groyper movement. This does not seem to be the case now, but just for people to understand this, what is a Groyper? Where did these theories come from? Which are now, I think, gone, but who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I hope this day would never come that I would have to explain to the offline audience what a Groyper is. But yeah, I mean, Groyper, so people remember Pepe the Frog.
Yeah.
So followers of Nick Fuentes and sort of general like Gen Z racists online around 2018, they got sort of a version of Pepe the Frog who was like a fatter toad, and he would hold his kind of look like this. He would sort of suspend his hands looking very smug. And that's Groyper. And so they started to call themselves Groypers. And so the idea is you're a hardcore Nick Fuentes follower. And as I mentioned, there was this thing where Nick Fuentes, up until the assassination, Nick Fuentes was very critical of Charlie Kirk. He was saying, that this guy is a real nemesis of the Groypers. And so after the assassination, I think a lot of people on the left, not unreasonably, I think thought, well, maybe it was a Groyper. But really, there's really no evidence of that. I mean, people point to this, how he dressed up as this Slavic squat meme, and people say, well, that's a Pepe thing. It's not really a Pepe thing. I mean, you can really get into the weeds on that, but I really just, even before we saw the messages between the roommate and the suspect, I really just think there's basically zero evidence. And I think it was a lot of, look, I don't blame people on the left for like really hoping, after this happened, that it was someone on the right, because we're seeing the Trump administration use this as a pretext to seemingly criminalize like half of politics. But, I do think, having gone through the evidence we have, I just don't think it's there. And
the engravings on the bullets, that was another thing that people were trying to go one way or the other, or trying to figure out ideology. What do you know? I mean, Groyper or not, what do you know from sort of your coverage of these right-wing spaces, whether it's on Discord, whether it's gamers, wherever else, where the places are where they overlap with either, far left views, or maybe just people who are nihilist in nature or anarchists? Like, what are the corners of the internet where you might find people who it may be hard to tell what their actual ideological alliance is?
Yeah, I mean, these are worlds that are very awash in memes, in irony, sort of triple, quadruple layers of irony. A lot of video game talk. I mean, for example, like some of the messages on the bullet casings were from the game Helldivers 2. Well, I think people took that, well, that's a Groyper favorite. I mean, that's like a popular game. I have that game. There's nothing sinister specifically about that game. And so I think, we're talking about like places like 4chan, Discord obviously has figured prominently here, which is sort of like Slack for, people who are too young to have jobs, perhaps. And, it's, you chat with your gamer buddies. As we've seen from the chat logs from the Discord, the suspects Discord that have come out, it's a lot of kind of like just, shooting the shit with your pals. And then suddenly this suspect says, by the way, I shot Charlie Kirk. And so I think a lot of the confusion about the suspect's motives, admittedly, there hasn't been a ton to go on, particularly up until the indictment yesterday. But I think a lot of the confusion, I think a lot of it is just kind of like young male internet culture in terms of the memes that I think are pretty inscrutable for people outside of it.
You mentioned this earlier, but I just want to follow up before we go. What do you think happens to Turning Point? And is there some kind of inter-MAGA struggle for who takes over and the direction it heads? Or
This is like maybe like the biggest issue facing right-wing media and
Wow.
even the Trump administration, for the next couple months. I mean, I think obviously there's been understandably an effort there's been a lot of focus on Charlie Kirk's widow, Erica Kirk. There's no like clear successor. I mean, there are people who sort of came up under him, like Benny Johnson, Candace Owens, although she's not coming back, but she's almost, as I said, she's kind of doing her own parallel claim to his legacy. But I think ultimately, I mean, we're talking about millions of dollars, tons of young activists. And I think a lot is going to shake out. I'm hearing grumblings about this big stadium memorial service, who's getting speaking engagements, whatever. But I think, to be frank, I think there's a possibility that this organization is kind of adrift. And perhaps some donors are going to step up and assert it. But a lot of that, it's like you can have a lot of money, but are you going to bring that Charlie Kirk audience? Are you going to have that credibility? And the last thing I would add here is like it's very closely watched who is getting close to turning point in the aftermath here. For example, Ben Shapiro broadcast from Charlie Kirk's studio earlier this week with kind of the Daily Wire gang. And obviously he's very pro-Israel. And so this has been taken as a sign of, oh no, Israel's taking over. Turning Point USA. We saw Marjorie Taylor Greene, insane. She says, this is a Christian organization. We can't allow another religion to take it over. I mean, there's a lot of, I'm going on here, but like there's a lot of religion stuff at play here too, specifically because Charlie Kirk was a Protestant. And so you have Candace Owens really randomly basically saying not only was he about to become critical of Israel, but he was also really close to converting to Catholicism. And so, there's this Jewish aspect as well. And so there's just like a lot of tension and kind of back and forth about what it meant to be Charlie Kirk and what he would have wanted.
Yeah, I mean, look, I put this the right way. Obviously, a lot of the people in that movement who knew Charlie Kirk and were close to him are devastated by this. It also seems like it's only been a week, and this assassination is being seen by many people on the right and within the MAGA movement as a way to, like you said, stake their claim to his legacy or do something that they had wanted to do previously, or make a point and an argument they were trying to make previously. And it makes me wonder about like how the legacy plays out and sort of like the staying power of the sort of unified rage that they feel right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a lot of people on the right who would prefer to see this used as some kind of quasi-fascist crackdown, who are getting very frustrated with the Israel critics who are saying, like, this is our chance to arrest George Soros or something on some pretext, and you guys are making it about Gaza and Netanyahu, and you're kind of like taking oxygen out of our scheme. I mean, and people are saying this like quite explicitly. They're like, this is our chance to crush the left. What are you doing? And ultimately, I think this can seem a little kind of factional and like, why are we so focused on these internecine fights? But I mean, this is a lot of this is the Trump administration. I mean, a lot of this is sort of the future of politics here. And so I think you have these big personalities bumping up against each other in this like incredibly emotionally charged moment.